So recently I watched this show called Helluva, and the slightly more widespread internet circulated Amazon series Hazbin Hotel. And I wasn't really aware of any of the controversies surrounding these shows, when I watched them. And it wasn't until after I saw them that I heard about, all the controversial everything, this and that was, all that. I had to look into that because I was kind of like, what is going on? Why were these shows, specifically Hazbin, causing such a big fuss? And basically I have two main takeaways from my extensive research. One, the creator, Vivian Medrano, or Vizzypop, yells at the fans and she hates her fans, okay? Which, upon looking into this, is basically just a case of her responding to hate comments and, which you always lose. I'm not commenting whether they were good responses or bad responses. It doesn't matter if you have a good argument or a terribly developed one. As soon as you respond to a hater online, you lose, and it doesn't look good for anybody, and it doesn't matter. That's just how it is. Just take yourself off Twitter. And two, the fans are cringy. And you know what? Fine, there are some in the fan base that others would deem cringy to suffer through. But you know what? There are people others would label as cringy in every single fan base on the planet. That's not an exclusive trait for Hazbin Hotel fans. And obviously there are those who, enjoy partaking in those quote-unquote cringe circles. Let people enjoy what they want. Enjoy what you want. No one's forcing you to watch the cringy content if you think it's cringy. No? Is that bad? But anyways, is that a defense of both of these shows? I mean, no. I have some, but that's not it. I'm just saying that the biggest controversy of these shows is merely just the existence of controversy. Meaning, there's controversy because people want there to be controversy. And, I mean, whatever, that's just how it is. Now, there are those I found when I was looking into this controversy, there are those who tear these shows apart for being dumb or relying entirely on swearing for laughs, or that the story is terrible, the storytelling I should say is terrible. And on the opposite side of that, I found a lot of people who would just tear down those arguments because there is no way that these shows could be anything but literal perfection. And the people making those arguments, the negative arguments, just don't get it, or they're missing something, or they don't understand and they can't watch it, and they shouldn't be watching it because it's not made for them and they should just forget it, and they're wrong. And I'm here to say neither of those sides was my experience with these shows. In actuality, I love both of these shows quite a lot, but in complete transparency, it did take me a year just to get through Hazbin Hotel. Season 1 released in January 2024, and it wasn't until just after New Year's 2025 that I actually finished the series. And the biggest reason was that I watched the first episode of Hazbin, not the pilot on YouTube, but just the show on Amazon, because truthfully I had no idea that there was a pilot or what the show was at all. And you hear people say that you need the pilot for the Amazon series to make sense, and that's just a lie. I mean, you get a couple more details, but they do set up the story fine in the Amazon series. I'm not confused at what's happening. It is kind of like a jump into it, but it's kind of like a jump into it at a point where you understand. So I just kind of thought that's how it started, and I'm like, yeah, that's fine. But I watched the first episode, and to be honest, I wasn't enjoying it at all, one bit. The animation was, pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. But I don't know, something about it just wasn't clicking. I mean, the excessive swearing didn't help either. Not that I'm bothered by it, but it just felt so unnecessary. I also didn't really find the jokes funny, partly because of this. And I don't really remember what I thought about the music, I'll be honest, because I didn't remember the music itself after I watched the first episode. But I had no reason to want to keep going, and I had such a not great time with it that I just felt like I don't want to watch this anymore. So I just left it, and I moved on, and that was fine. It clearly wasn't made for me, and I was okay with that, and whatever, it's okay. Now, fast forward until right now. I've watched Hazbin Hotel twice, and I've watched all of Helluva once, and including I've started rewatching it. But what happened? How did I go from really not liking the first episode to dropping a show after the first episode to now I've I've watched it twice, I love it. Now I'm seeing Helluva once, and I'm rewatching that because I love it so much. Well, it wasn't until near the end of 2024 that I looked at my ranking for all my TV shows that I had seen from that year, 2024, and in my bottom 10 sat Hazbin Hotel, I think at number 6 or something. It was at number 6 or something. I hadn't really ever thought about it after my, less than amazing experience with it when I first watched it, so it kind of just sat near the bottom and I hadn't really touched it or thought about it. And it's the 6th worst TV show I had watched in 2024. I mean, Knuckles is in that list for comparison. I mean, there's no way it's actually that bad. So now I started to think about it again. And finally one night I decided, whatever, I'm just going to pick it up again from the top. Not the YouTube pilot, again, because I had no idea that existed. And I will say, that was a big mistake to start at night, because I literally pressed play and didn't leave my spot until episode 8 ended. It was almost instant, too. I played from the start, and all of my complaints just didn't really apply anymore. I don't know. It wasn't like I grew to love it over time. I'm like, you know what, maybe this is starting to grow on me. I'm kind of liking this now. It took me a little getting used to, but, I think we're finding our footing. No, it was just instant. I hated it, quit it. Waited a year, watched it, loved it immediately. I don't know, it's one of life's greatest mysteries and one that I don't think I'll ever know the answer to. My sister then introduced me to the YouTube pilot, which is good. Yes, it's good. I like it. It's a fun setup, and this is where some of the confusion lies, I think, in terms of the writing, because people say you need to see this pilot to understand the Amazon series. But there are so many things that change from the pilot to the Amazon series to the show. There are a lot of concepts that cross over and elements where you can see things switch, like character dynamics changing to suit a slightly altered story, which is great. Lots of these changes likely stem from, a studio picking up and more people putting in ideas together, and mainly also just time changing Vivian's mind on how she wanted to tell this story, because this was, I think, 5-year gap between release of the pilot to release of the show. So a lot of time to change a lot of things. But then this pilot is considered like essential viewing by some, which sort of makes sense too, because some character dynamics are set up in the pilot and certain exposition is given that's not really touched on in the, initially in the show, because they pick up after the pilot instead of remaking it. They do pick up after it because it is canon, but then they don't touch on it as much because it's not canon. What? But that's fine. It just speaks to the imperfections of this universe and kind of like that changing story over time and kind of where the inconsistencies kind of come from there. But I don't know, honestly, if any cinematic universe that has multiple projects in it that span multiple years has ever not had that. You look at Star Wars, there are lots of inconsistencies there because of just time developing, different stories coming into the fold. You look at Marvel, you're there's a lot changes based on what we're thinking now at this time, and then what we're thinking now 10 years later. It's I didn't want to do that story anymore. I thought it was cool back then. I'm something else would be better, so we do that. Things change, and that's cool. It's cool to see that progression. Now, I loved Hazbin so much that I then watched Helluva Boss, which is the spin-off. But here's the thing. Helluva Boss feels more like the main attraction of this universe than Hazbin does. So, Hazbin is the main show because it's about, it's a highly fictionalized version of heaven and hell and rehabilitating sinners and concepts that are pretty commonly known. And that's what that's about, and that's kind of the main concept of the story. Or what if we had this idea, what if this was going on, what if hell was trying to rehabilitate sinners to get back into heaven, and it's kind of this idea that they built the show off of. And then Helluva Boss follows characters in that world, so that's why it's a spinoff. But Hazbin Hotel really only covers 2 worlds, or one side of that. Helluva Boss crosses over to heaven and then all the other interdimensional places in hell, also back to Earth. It goes to all these different places and really builds out these characters in this universe, and it covers so much more ground than Hazbin does, and it builds so much more of the world than Hazbin does. But Helluva Boss is the spinoff and not Hazbin. I know that this is the main attraction and this is the spinoff, but it does not feel like that at all, which I'm not mad about that. I might sound mad, I'm not. I just think it's a slightly humorous, funny dynamic, but it's interesting. Because now we also get to the story, the stories of these shows. Now here's the thing, neither of these shows are perfect. They have their issues. For example, having watched Hazbin twice now, there's definitely more plot than there is episodes. It can feel a little rushed through. It's a show about a political relationship between heaven and hell and establishing multiple plot points about rebellions, underground markets of organized crime, essentially, as well as developing hell as basically just another Earth, but worse and red. So there's different plot points about, entrepreneurs and corporations in hell as well. And there's also this hotel, that's the main drive of the story. And with it, we get Charlie's relationship with Alistair and her dad growing during the second half of the show. And with the hotel, we also get plot points surrounding developing other independent character stories and relationships, such as Angel Dusk as an example, Husk as another example. Oh, and the subplot about Vaggie too and her secret relationship with Charlie as well. Well, we got Adam as well and what's going on with the exterminations and what he's hiding and everything. We got all that going on. All of this, and the total length is a little over 3 hours. Honestly, there's no way all of this could work with the runtime if it wasn't a musical. And here's the thing. The beauty of a musical is getting the characters to sing in crucial moments to deliver exposition, to where the story is moving, how the characters are feeling, how the character changes. So all of this happens in a song, in a musical number. So with a musical, a character can completely change part of themselves by the end of a song, as opposed to the beginning of the song. As long as there's a bit of setup beforehand, it usually works. I would like a lot more setup, but as long as there's a little bit, and you buy it because of the song, you're it's alright. And now they can just put a bit of setup during the first half of the episode and then spend 3 to 4 minutes on this character growth as opposed to spending 2 episodes on it. And if the song slaps, which they do in the show, then a good number of people will accept just how it is because, you know what, Loser Baby's a banger. And what can I say? So now it's like Angel and Husk's relationship is completely different than it was 4 minutes ago. It's not the same at all, but that song's a banger, so it's okay. Is it a little rushed? Would I have loved at least 2 or 3 more episodes? Yes, but I also understand that's not how this works. So I can't really put down I would like more episodes as an actual complaint, or I feel like they should have done more episodes as an actual, this is why the show doesn't work, or why it's bad, and this is the fault of the creators, because it's not. I'm pretty sure Vivian wasn't like, I only want 8 episodes. I don't want any more than that. I just don't want to worry about it. I think we can fit it all in 8 episodes, and if you give me 10, I'll deny it. You know, I'll just do 8. Like, I highly doubt that's what happened. It's definitely Amazon's like, yeah, you got 8 episodes. Length, 20, 30 minutes, somewhere in there. 8 episodes, that's what you get. And despite the slightly rushed pacing, they still managed to get a story across well in a way that still works. Characters are still set up well and kind of delivered on well, but I just wish there was more time to explore other characters too. And hey, maybe that's season 2. You know, we'll have a larger focus on whatever Alistair's doing, please, because I want to know what's going on. It's very interesting, and I'm in. Not just season 2, because also season 3 and 4 are confirmed as well, which is awesome. I didn't know that until like a week ago, so that's sweet. Also, Alistair's the bad guy, right? Like, he's gonna be the secret antagonist, right? Like, right? Is this just me? No, I don't. Maybe I'm tweaking, I don't know. But anyway, where Hazbin Hotel kind of makes me want more time on certain characters and everything, Helluva Boss feels a lot more focused on a personal story. Not all the time, but more than Hazbin, because Hazbin Hotel juggles all these plot lines and ideas, whereas Helluva Boss offers a story more focused on the attachment to its lead characters, which makes it a lot more compelling. And that doesn't mean it's perfect. Again, this video is about the wonderfully imperfect nature of these shows, and I think that stems from Vivian just changing her mind as well on what she wants certain characters to be for the story. Again, because like a lot of time passes as the show goes on. Like, take Stolas. He is the excessively, character. In the beginning, it appears as if there's no other side to him, because you're like, I don't know what's going on, but man, you need to chill, okay? Whoa. I believe that maybe there was like, we'll develop him this way, but I feel like that completely changed initially. His relationship with Blitz was very toxic, yes, and it seemed like this thing that Blitz just had to do, but then, the next time we see Stolas, he's a completely different character. And this isn't just because of the voice actor change, it's his personality is nowhere close to the first time you see him in the show. And then he develops from there, which is fine because it's from the pilot early on, and it's kind of the same situation as Hazbin Hotel, except significantly less time from the pilot to the continuation, and it's not like a different service picked it up, it's still just the independent animation going on, so less like the Hazbin situation, but similar. And in terms of the character dynamics themselves in Helluva Boss, it feels like that's the main focus. There's a week-to-week element of it, absolutely, and it's awesome. Being a show about, contract killers that go to Earth to kill people for clients in Hell, and then some episodes reveal more about other characters' lives, families, etc., but those are all like episode-contained stories. Because then there's the main plot of the show that carries through. It's the plot of Blitz's relationship to Stolas and Stolas' relationship with his family. There's less plot points crammed into the episodes of Helluva Boss than there is with Hazbin, which results in a much more focused and compelling narrative, I find. There's a lot more of this world explored in Helluva Boss, but there's also more time to explore the characters and develop them over the course of the series. And like, how do we put these themes and concepts into the main character's relationship? And that's what carries through the show. And that's why I think it's a lot more compelling. It's not perfect, but the story comes across in a way that definitely connects with the audience here. And there's a lot of amazing episodes through it as well. Full Moon, Apology Tour, Truth Seekers, Mastermind, the finale. They're all like so good. But then you get things like, Unhappy Campers and like, it's like, please, can you stop? Can you not do that, please? Or Mimsy interrupting the banger of Hell's Greatest Dad. And it's like, why? Why are you here right now? Why do you have to ruin the song? What's wrong with you? Anyway, which brings me, speaking of songs, to the musical aspect. Like I already said, I kind of already touched on that, the musical aspect of Hazbin. I said it already works great. The use of reprising songs is awesome in Hazbin Hotel. I love when songs in a musical bring melodies from the past song into a new song in the same musical for different parts of it. And this show does that a lot. I love it so much. There's also a wide use of how songs are introduced as well, from long build-ups making you anticipate the song to basically song jump scares. Each of the songs starts and ends amazingly as well. Like any way it starts great. And any way it ends great, except Hell's Greatest Dad, because Mimsy interrupts it. It's like, what are you doing here? It's fine. I'll get over it. And in Helluva Boss, I didn't know that Helluva Boss was a musical, I'll just say, until I started watching it. When Blitz was like, we're doing a musical, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. But I didn't know that, and that was a great surprise. I'll be honest, not every song slaps in Helluva Boss. Unhappy Campers, I'm looking at you, but most of them do. But there's a lot of really fun ones as well, and all of Stolz's songs are just probably the best of both of these shows. I don't know if I can say that for sure, but they're awesome. I love them so much, and they're beautiful. Near the start of Helluva Boss, the indie side of the musical aspect really shines through, and the songs are good from the start, and kind of feel like demos of songs, which is great at the start. It has this very nice charm to it, and I love it. But then they get more and more extravagant as well as the show goes on, and it's great. And obviously Hazbin Hotel has bigger musical numbers because its budget is way higher than Helluva Boss's, and there were more people working on it, so I mean, obviously that's just what you get. And the animation in both shows, though, is so good. It's great. Helluva Boss's animation has always been fun since the start, but wow, I mean, looking at season 2 is crazy compared to the first batch of episodes. It's insane. And I touched on this briefly earlier, but the comedy, honestly, I still don't find Hazbin Hotel like uber hilarious. I think some of the jokes don't really land. I think some are great, but overall I'd say I find it humorous to watch. Whereas Helluva Boss is like more up my alley, because I feel like Helluva Boss uses a lot more methods of comedy than Hazbin does, and that's just that this show, Helluva Boss, can be so unpredictable and random and totally chaotic, and I love chaotic humor, so I'm there for it. Silent character expressions are used all the time for comedy in the show as well, and it's great. And I feel that just generally the absurdity of some of these stories are just utilized better for comedy in Helluva Boss. So I know a lot of people say it is, but it's not really just all swear, haha. Like, I mean, there's some of that, like, definitely. But I'd say that happens more in Hazbin Hotel than it does in Helluva Boss, which is kind of why I find Helluva Boss more funny, because it uses a lot of other comedic tropes and styles. So, yeah. I will say, no other character is written with a better use of swears than Alistair. His character only swears during certain moments, not very much. You know what? Maybe that's a lie, and maybe I'm just desensitized to it, but all those moments where Alistair actually does swear have so much impact and add to the expression of that character so well. Whereas, again, I'm basically desensitized to the language of any other character in these shows, but that's fine. And some characters are written to use specific language a lot, as opposed to other characters who don't really say those certain words as much, and they have their own types of language that they fall back on a lot. So each character is actually written consistently in terms of the way they talk. So it's actually a pretty great thing about the character writing in these shows that I haven't really heard many people highlight before. Overall, both of these shows have their issues for sure, and some amazing highs and some not so great lows, but they both speak to the passion of the makers involved in bringing these shows to life. And I love watching that play out. So much so that Helluva Boss is actually probably one of my favorite animated series out there. I mean, obviously, One Piece, Evangelion, Attack on Titan. I mean, y'all take the cake, like, no question. Nothing can compete, okay? But yeah, if you got the impression that I like Helluva Boss and not Hazbin Hotel, that's not true. I love both of these shows. But yeah, Helluva Boss I just think is better, but that's okay. Anyway, that's all I have to say.